behind closed doors.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
This is Beer and B Movies. I'm Jason.
And I'm Michael. And today we are drinking Head in the Clouds Juicy Double IPA from Santa Monica Brew Works in Santa Monica, California. And we're going to be talking about Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill.
What year did that come out?
1965.
1965.
So this is a special beer Santa Monica keeps at the brewery, or you can get it in Crowlers. It is a really wonderfully tropical IPA. I mean, it's got all that peach, mango, not your citrus bomb. This thing is, it's way too drinkable at 8.5, I think. I mean, this thing you could get over your skis pretty easily on.
It's fruity. It tastes like a morning breakfast cocktail.
It is, yeah. And it's just got a beautiful cloudy, Head in the Clouds is a great word for it because it is cloudy, orange. I mean, it does have sort of a peach hue to it. And like I said, I like that. Sometimes the grapefruit, I get enough of that. Yeah. But this thing is just, I like that tropical. Mangoes and peaches just are so nice. And this thing is...
It's a nice, sweet beer to discuss a very nasty little movie.
Oh, this movie, before we did it, I'd watched it years ago, and I forgot just how unpleasant and kind of unsettling from the get-go. Russ Meyer is the director. What is his claim to fame?
Movies with very buxom, big-breasted women.
In fact, one of the actresses in this film, Lori Williams,
who plays Billy,
who likes to go-go dance, and she's good at it. She said she almost didn't get her role. I don't know if you read this.
I did not.
Because Russ Meyer basically said you aren't ample enough in the bosom area. So I believe she went and found a push-up bra and came back to make her look more buxomy, and she got the role, and she was great as Billy.
She was.
But if you're comparing bosoms to
Varla,
it's kind of unfair.
Tura Santana, who plays Varla, her plunging neckline for most of the movie, it's its own character.
But I don't know how she stayed in that shirt.
Definitely a mystery. Yeah. So why was this a B movie? The budget was literally $45,000. No-name actors.
You can tell they're kind of shooting wherever they can. No. It's out in the desert. I don't know if they were like going through the legal means of getting permits or whatnot.
Probably not.
I don't know if it was that big of a deal back then. It's campy acting, even though it's enjoyable. Varla, Tura Satana, her acting style is so angry and caustic. Everything is, she just yells her dialogue with an aggressive point. Every time she talks to somebody, she might be saying, let's go grab lunch. And it's this angry point of just, let's go grab lunch. Everything is just barked at people. It's fantastic.
I put that same note. I said she had two settings for her dialogue. One is just screaming and yelling at everyone, and regardless of the content of the conversation, as you're pointing out. And the other was occasionally when she's trying to win over Kirk or the old man at the very beginning, there's that little sweetness, but very few times in the movie do you actually see her talk that way.
In a maniacal laugh at extremely inappropriate times.
Yeah, when you see her laugh, it's generally when people are at their lowest point. They're either being hurt or she's making fun of them, like the gasoline attendant. So, in film school, anything in particular they talked about Russ Meyer's?
You touched on Russ Meyer, but it was more independent filmmaking.
Okay.
I mean, of course, anytime you talk about Russ Meyer and you're around people who are familiar, first thing they do is say, well, big breasts.
Yes. Okay.
And sort of groundbreaking in certain ways that I don't know if Russ Meyer has ever tried to take credit, but this movie gets a lot of credit for, they say it's a very feminist film. I don't know if that was Russ Meyer's goal when he set out. I feel more often than not, his goal was he likes seeing women with big breasts.
I think you could read into movies later on and think he had made a movie right before this that dealt with motorcycles that did fairly decent in the box office, kind of male-dominated. He thought, I'll do one where it's the female leads taking on those male roles, and they'll have large breasts. Not a big cast. 9 characters, including the voiceover person at the beginning.
That guy was such a square.
Because there's Tura Santana plays Varla, the lead of this gang. There's also Haji. She plays Rosie. There is Lori Williams, who plays Billy. Susan Bernard plays Linda. Not a big cast. Realize Lori Williams, Dennis Bush, he played the vegetable. I think they're the only living cast members left from this film.
Because he looks familiar. He is a big weightlifting dude. He's built very well, handsome face. And he just, every time I see him, I go, I know I've seen him in other things. For, the role he's playing, which is a very simple, he doesn't do a bad job. It's not bad. I mean, really, he just has to stand there and look good, but he's a simple-minded guy. He's the
vegetable. A horrible name a parent should call their son, but the old man calls his son the vegetable.
Right from the beginning of this film, there's sort of this unsettling vibe that you get. It starts with a dark screen, with the lines that move with a voice
and the voiceover is talking about this new type of violence that society is facing. And what you understand is he's talking about female sexuality. And you're watching men watch these three go-go dancers, the main characters, dance, and they don't seem to be enjoying it. They're getting more and more aggressive, and they're yelling, faster, faster, faster. It's an odd start.
And it just keeps jumping. It's this montage cutting from, the women at odd angles, like they're go-go dancing, and then they just cut to a man's face, and he doesn't look like he's enjoying himself. No. None of them look like, if I'm watching attractive women dance, I wouldn't look this angry, and they're aggressively just going, faster, baby, go, like really angrily going at them. I don't know why that is the case. We're not sure if it's bad acting, or if there's something that we're trying to project this anger at these women for being, independent and going, I can do this. This is my body. If I want to go out and earn money this way, I can. It's sort of just right out of the gate, you feel disoriented. And it throws you into this state of, what am I in? What am I in for? And what you're in for is tourist Satana angrily, trying to kill and rob her way and bullying people.
Part of me is saying, yeah, you could look at that context, that dialogue, and you could say, these are men who are angry and upset at these women becoming independent. And this is why I think there is this online, you could read articles about this being a feminist movement. Or, and we're not going to get into that, it's not my background. We're going to stay away from it.
We're staying away from that.
Or it could be just, he needed to pad this movie. You can cut that entire scene out, and it really has no impact on the rest of the film. They're racing in cars across the California desert.
Well, and one of the things I love is it is such a Southern California thing that they're not carpooling. The three women are all driving their own car. It was almost like pre-Swingers, that scene in Swingers where the guys walk out of the club and they all get in their own car and like back out together and all drive to the next club together. Like these three women can't be bothered to ride together. They're just out there and they start driving. They go out to sort of a places where you can
dry lake beds. El Mirage Dry Lake Beds, one that's big up here. I'm not sure where this one's at. They definitely shot at a small little ghost town called Randsburg that's up next to Trona and Ridgecrest.
They lay some tires out to sort of make the track, and they measure out whatever, and you go out and you race in the desert. It escapes me. I'm just a Midwestern guy. Going out to the desert just doesn't seem like the thing you're supposed to do, but they do it.
Yeah, they're out there. They're driving. Like, I had to look this car because I'm like, these are nice little cars. It's a Porsche 356 that Varla's driving, and then there's a Triumph TR3 and an MGA. And those are nice little sports
cool
cars.
Oh, yeah. Those are cool cars.
Clearly, they're making some money in their go-go dancing career, or in their side career, possibly of being a
gang
that's involved in robbing and
doing whatever they want.
Dubious other items. Because
I believe they call them ne'er-do-wells.
Yes, ne'er-do-wells, exactly. Decide to go out racing their cars in the desert. They're acting like traditional, what you would think is traditional male roles. Racing cars, wrestling. There's an early scene where two women are wrestling in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie.
It's worth saying, I'm going to jump in because it's not just wrestling. They stop and Billy gets out, jumps into water. Yeah. So she's swimming around and Varla tells Rosie, you got to go get her. So it's wet. scantily clad, buxom women rolling around. We're getting into that male fantasy, of attractive women being wet and fighting.
I do have to point out that very soon after the next scene, Billy's clothes are all like Rosie has a new outfit. Billy's outfit completely dried, so just continuity issue there. But
there was no continuity thought about because I noticed Billy's belt changed constantly. It was black. She had on these nice white hot pants. Black belt went to a white belt. I think at one point I noticed there was no belt. Again, the budget wasn't there. I don't know how long it took. This wasn't a 3-month shoot, So yeah, she's totally dry. I know this is arid. Things dry quick in the desert. I know that.
2 characters, Linda and Tommy.
Yes.
Your quintessential, clean-cut American kids show up at that same dry lake bed racetrack. Things go awry. Varla kills Tommy,
who's a nice guy, but he's a square. He is such a square. I mean, it's basically American Graffiti, drove into Wild Angels. They're such a sweet couple. He's got plaid shorts. All he wants to do is he wants to run time trials. His girlfriend is in a bikini and she's going to time him. That's all. And then Varla, they make fun of him because he's not racing a person. You have to beat someone. In their world, in Varla's world, there always has to be a loser, and you can never be the loser. So Tommy, just driving his car, is a big loser because what's he doing? Well, Squaresville Tommy is like, well, that's what you do. You beat the time.
Yes.
I just want a cool car that drives fast. So Varla bullies him into racing, and he's not ready for her kind of racing.
No. When you said American Graffiti, I made a note that Tommy and Linda reminded me of the Gidget movies that had come out right before this. And they were this all-American archetype, just the nicest couple. In fact, Linda says, "Do you guys want a soft drink?" And I wrote down Rosie's quote, "Are you putting me on? We don't like anything soft. Everything we touch is hard." I mean, I just want to say a double entendre, and everything that a lot of these women says is a double entendre, which is a very male thing to do, to talk about constant sexuality.
It was basically like, that's what she said before. That's what she
exactly.
said. Your Gidget comparison is much better than my American Graffiti because my American Graffiti is like 10 years later. The Gidget was at that time.
Yeah, the movies had just come out.
And it almost, I don't know if this has ever been addressed or if Russ Meyer, if he was saying, I was trying to crush that reality. I was trying to destroy that idea of the Gidget. Like, that's not reality. The real world isn't that. The real world is people like Varla coming into the Gidget world and kicking sand in your face and going, I do what I want. The old Goodfellas thing, if anybody complains, I'm going to hit you so hard, you're never going to think of complaining again.
The contrast between these two groups of characters is vastly different.
They should almost be animated. They are so like cheesy, white, smiley, nice. The kind of people you want driving by if your car's broke down.
Absolutely.
So nice, but you're not even real. This isn't real. These buxom women wrestling are actually seem more real than you. So
and I have to point out right then, Billy's actually handing out PBR. I think they're PBRs, which also I think is a very male thing to do. And yet Linda's like, "Do you guys want to drink soft drinks? You have some soft drinks you would like to drink?"
No, it's very true. I mean, especially in that time, beer is always viewed as that's a guy thing.
Yes.
For better or worse, I'm just saying that is how it's looked at. Even beer, like now you go to this brewery, Santa Monica Brew Works, you see plenty of women. And that women are drinking beer, but especially back then, beer was what your dad drank on the weekends when he wasn't drinking. So yeah, these gals like leaning up against their car, tossing beers to each other. It's a very masculine, different switch of roles. Varla kills Tommy with a barrage of the most wonderful, hard, like right-handed karate chops. After they race, she runs him off the course. He almost crashes, and then he sits there in mortal, just like, he's just so freaked out. But then he gets out. They start messing with Linda, and then Tommy gets in a fight with Varla. She's hitting him. Finally, he starts hitting her, and that is one thing about this movie is, I mean, when the men start fighting Varla, they throw down.
No, they do.
He is punching her in the face and going, but she beats him up and then kills him. And then they kidnap Linda. So she's kind of an integral part of it, which I never understand why.
I want to stop right there because you said something, these women leaning up against these cars. The cinematography for this movie, number one, they chose to shoot in black and white. And I think even Tura Santana, in a later interview, and we could link out to it in our show notes, talks about that by shooting that black and white, it made this movie even more stark. And I think it adds an element to this film. There is a lot of what I would consider pinup shots, where the women are standing very seductively on cars or on fence posts. Or the way he frames the shot sometimes, where he would do things in threes where you would see a person walk up, like literally you would see Billy's pelvis walk right up to the camera.
Oh, absolutely.
And he'd frame it with two people on opposite sides on a regular basis.
Yeah. Almost, there was a Western quality.
Yes.
It reminded you of a Western with some of those shots. Predates Sergio Leone, but I mean those wide kind of John Ford where somebody's walking towards him. But this time it's, Billy, which, I'm just going to say it. I was okay with that.
So was I.
That was a great shot. Billy was a nice dancer.
No.
Watching her walk towards the screen, I was like, I kind of wish it was in 3D. But... And you have the bad person, Varla. She wears black.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
And you have the brunettes. Rosie and Varla are sort of the more bad ones. Yeah. Billy is bad part of their crew. But right from the get-go, you see in her acting, you see in her character that she's not with them on this kill spree. She likes the kicks, and she likes to dance, and she likes to have a good time. But she's not really in for all this violence and robbery and Varla's just nihilistic rampage on the Southwest.
No, you are right. I did not pick up that. Is
really
interesting insight. Like he is pointing out, although we're going to see some badder people, this is one of the bad guys.
Just even down to the harsh bangs, it just frames her, and she's just angry. Her gloves are black. Everything she has on is black.
Eventually, this gang, Varla, Rosie, and Billy, end up in a small desert town to get gas.
We get to the plot, and there's a person who tells us how the rest of the movie is going to go. And you're going to tell us about that person.
This gasoline attendant describes the rest of the plot of the movie. They see a white pickup, a man who is in a wheelchair, and his attendant, it's eventually you realize it's his son that he refers to as a vegetable, lift him in his car. I'm assuming they're in town for supply run. And the gasoline attendant says he got injured in a train accident. He doesn't like women because of the train accident. Apparently a woman causes, and he'll go into his story of why the train accident happened and he was injured. No one likes him in town. He has a lot of money from the settlement from this train accident hidden somewhere on his property. He basically has no phone line, and no one will miss him if he disappears. I mean, the gasoline attendant goes bullet point by bullet point. Basically, if you're a gang and you should rob someone, this is the person you should go after.
He basically does what John Gotti did, but he benefits nothing. He explains everything. So Varla immediately gets the idea they should go after the long green. And we're going to follow these guys, but we're going to be sneaky about it. Good luck, because you're in the middle of nowhere. You're in the desert. There's no sneaky way of following any. You can see for 5 miles.
Exactly.
But they find some sort of back road onto their property. I don't know how. They like to talk about how desolate and disorienting and bad the desert is, and you get lost. But people keep finding their way everywhere they need to be. And also at one point, Varla is standing in the background. You see a car drive by on a highway just over there. So there's kind of a busy highway not that far away. So they come in the back 40 onto this guy's land, and their plan is they're going to get in there, get the loot, or the long green, as they like to say. And this is where I found, why do they still have Linda? They have Linda. She's out. Billy's concerned. Varla says, I gave her a pill. They concoct this idea. They're gonna use Linda and say, which I love this. Her boyfriend died. She went crazy. She left. Her parents are in politics, and they sent these 3 ladies with their 3 different cars to go get the girl and bring her home because they're in politics. They got to keep it on the down low. I just kept thinking, and I'm not for this, but why don't you just kill Linda and then just go in and use your go-go dancing to talk to the guys?
I made notes where they made this more complicated than they need to be. At that point, until you reach the gasoline attendant, you're not sure what the plot of this movie is. All of a sudden, the gasoline attendant reveals the plot. Hey, this old man, he has 2 sons out there. There's a lot of money. You can go and steal from it. But they have Linda in tow. They've mentioned Tommy's in the trunk of one of these cars. Sadly, I mean, this is movie, it's fictional, but wow, knock off Linda and make it easier. They had to concoct...
We're not condoning that.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
But at that point, you've already committed a murder.
Yeah.
And it's the old thing about lying. If you're going to lie, keep it simple.
Exactly.
The more complicated the lie, the more chance you're going to get caught. So this convoluted scheme, she's already knocked out with the pill. You've already crossed that line where you're going to murder.
Yes.
So it's like, why? What's the point of... She is just trouble.
She is.
All she can do, you take her into this situation, all you can do is create trouble for yourself. The only thing I can think of is you gotta have good. We're gonna find out real soon that this creepy old man in a wheelchair is not good. I would honestly take my chances with Varla and her karate chops than this old man and his simple-minded son if I was a young woman. The old man, can we get into that? Again, I hadn't watched it in over 15 years. Kind of forgot. There's just some very unsettling things. And it's that old, you don't have to be vulgar to be disturbing.
My note said, all of a sudden this movie went from a heist movie to a heist movie meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This family out in the desert is led by an old man who is injured in a railroad accident. His one son, who he refers to lovingly as the vegetable. There's clearly some intellectual issues with this young man. And then there's this other son, Kirk, who seems like he walked in from another movie. Completely clueless. But yes, it takes another trajectory because these women, they're there to steal this money and they run into an old man. The old man is played by Stuart Lancaster, probably the best actor out of when I watch him, even though you're right, it is unsettling if you listen to his dialogue, he is the best actor out of anyone. And I like listening to his dialogue, but he is
creepy, disturbing, all words that keep running through my notes. He's talking to the vegetable, and it makes it pretty clear that women die out at his place.
Yes.
And it's not a big deal. And I wrote, the dad is so creepy. At one point, he goes on about ribbons. They have these women, and they're tied up with ribbons. And he tells the vegetable, all we have to do is unwrap the ribbons, and we get to the package, and then we hide them in the desert.
Exactly. What has gone on his property?
And he's been paralyzed from the waist down by this accident. I get the image. I get the impression they've been getting women, and he must have the vegetable rape them because he's incapable, and then kill them, and then hide them in the desert. I don't know how much Kirk knows about all this, the quote-unquote normal son, because he is really normal, but I go, there's got to be some toys in your attic. Yes. If you grew up in here.
And you're willing to stay on that property.
At one point near the end, Varla mentions something about his dad being an old lech, and very casually, Kirk goes, oh, you know about that.
Yes.
This movie starts as you're going, what is going on? These criminals are just doing criminal things. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh boy, they might have bit off more than they can chew, because this old man is really messed up in the head. He attacks the young woman and then tries to blame her. And Varla and even Billy see right through him because they know they kidnapped Gidget, who is just not capable. And this old man, they know right off the bat, this old man's creepy. Oh, there was something, one of the first things, and this movie does date itself in a couple of ways. He says they let him vote, smoke, drive, and wear pants.
And then to continue that, so what do you get? A Democrat for president? A lot of smoke up your chimney, Russian roulette on the highway. Can't even tell brother from sister.
He worked for the railroad. We find out he was trying to save a young woman, and he ended up getting crippled, and she got on the next train, and the young woman, Linda, reminds him of her. And he's got a serious Jones for Linda, and it's so unpleasant and unsettling. She escapes, runs off into the desert. She flags down a truck, and there's Kirk. He's on a supply run.
Yeah.
So we're not really sure why the vegetable and the dad were in town earlier. Couldn't they have done that? Or if
And that scene was a quintessential horror movie scene. She gets in the car with Kurt, who seems like he is a good guy. And they're driving back, and also she realizes, like, holy mother, I'm driving back to that same property. And he's like, this is my family.
Yes.
And Linda, comes unglued. He's like, well, I'll protect you. A horrific moment, and a very much a horror story now.
That thing has been beat to death by horror movies. But yeah, the idea of, I've liberated myself, I've saved myself, hey, this person will help me, and they take you right back. And Kirk, by all accounts, is a normal guy, even though he seems to know his dad is a sicko. His brother's simple and the dad says such terrible things at one point. He just goes on about how the vegetable isn't any real blood of his. It's not my kin. He's like,
use him because he's a tool.
Yes.
And that's all he's worth.
When Kirk gets back with Linda and she's freaking out, there's this great little moment. To me, it's telling. I have no idea if this was talked about, thought about. It's just a great moment when Kirk is walking in with supplies. The dad reaches out, stops him, reaches into the box, pulls out a bottle of whiskey. The whole time he's looking at Kirk. He opens the whiskey. He takes the cap, throws it, which is just this telling thing. I don't need a cap. This whiskey's open. This whiskey is going to be drank. The entire bottle is going to be consumed.
Now.
It's a telling moment. And Kirk just goes, a little early in the day for that, isn't it? The dad doesn't care. And that's when the big lunch.
Yes.
He tells him to fry up some chicken.
That lunch scene, I thoroughly enjoyed. I watched that scene over and over again. You have, at one end of the table, Billy and the old man getting drunk on...
I think it was Cutty Sark, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it changed from a clear bottle out on the deck, became Cutty Sark inside, and the old man is loaded. Billy she's the lightweight of all lightweights, because she gets drunk immediately. A couple sips and she's gone.
I was trying to watch what was on the table. There's a plate of just celery. It's an interesting meal. I mean, Kirk kicked up some fried chicken. There's a plate of celery. There's some mashed potatoes. There's some corn. There's a plate of grapes. And you don't see this a lot in the movie, where the actors are actually chewing their food and eating it. The scene, they're really eating their food.
Oh, the vegetable has something on his lip, which is a great little bit of realism that I'm sure wasn't planned. Yeah. It was just... we don't do reshoots in this movie.
No.
But he's just looking dumbly at the dad, and there's just food on his lip. And there are movies that make you want to eat. You just watch this and you go, wow, this is just eating just sounds terrible.
Yes.
Because you got Varla on one end, and she's totally putting the moves on Kirk, going for it. And then Billy's getting drunk. The old man's drunk, and he goes on about how the vegetable killed his mother when he was born.
Because he was so big.
Yes. And then he's just like, and now all of a sudden he sort of feels like he's my blood. And he's like, he doesn't even know what he did. He's like, this house knows about death. And he goes on about that. And you're thinking the whole time, it knows about death in another way, you old creep.
Yes.
You seem to have a lot of bodies planted out in the desert. Varla and Kirk go out, and suddenly they got the hots for each other. He has a line where he goes, "You're a beautiful animal, and I'm weak, and I want you." And meanwhile, Billy is heckling Rosie, because this is another part of the movie that's very interesting. There's very much an attraction between Rosie and Varla.
Yes, that's how she controls her.
We never know if there's a relationship, but it's pretty clear. And Billy razzes Rosie about it when Kirk and Varla leave, about, I'm me, I've got my own thing, your thing just left. So it's very open, which again, it's sort of ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't that veiled, like very much under. It was like very open. There's a lesbian attraction going on here. And that in itself, groundbreaking. Because I can't think of movies in that era where it's that open. It's always so coded and buried. And meanwhile, Billy goes on about how she likes to drink. And she likes to drink till she passes out, and it's about time to pass out.
Yes, exactly. I listed all the characters. In general, it sounds like each of these characters are from a very different movie. Varla, yelling dominatrix. Rosie, every cartoon I grew up on, like how an Italian American speaks. The stereotype, and it's horrible. It's like, hey, what's going on? The hand movements. Billy is speaking from a 1960s hippie. I don't understand half the dialogue or the phrases Billy says, make no sense to me whatsoever.
The one thing she says that I did get is at one point Varla is going on about, I think she really wants this money and she's going to do whatever it takes. And Billy goes, man, you really do have the hots for the long green. And I know that means you really want the money, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, Billy's lingo is
so Southern California.
Exactly.
So California, well, just 1965. Probably
Yes.
New York, California, the hippie, wherever the hippies are. She just speaks in that daddy-o, beatnik / hippie language. Her entire dialogue was written by some daddy-o.
And to quote a line, Billy says, and this is to Varla, "You're cute, like a velvet glove cast in iron, and like a gas chamber, Varla, a real fun gal." And it's comments like that, and I'm like, well, a velvet glove cast in iron, like I've heard that before, and I did some research, and everything points back to this film. I can't find a reference outside this film. It seems like a classic line.
It's a great line.
Yes. Did Russ Myers really come up with that line, or is there something that I'm missing? If anybody has any information, please email us.
I'd love to know.
We're after lunch, and this is where we're moving up to the climax.
Oh,
where
we're getting it. Kirk and Varla
Making out in the
messing
hay.
around. Rosie's watching, jealous. All of a sudden, a car leaves. Varla says, hey, there's a lot of action going on out there.
basically Linda has escaped again.
Yes,
she got
because Billy did go through with her promise. She got drunk enough to pass out.
She's drunk. Rosie is watching Varla make out with Kirk. With Linda, they've overcomplicated their heist story. No one's watching Linda. She's out there in the desert running for her life.
Varla gets up, goes out to see what's going on. The vegetable is carrying the old man, who's suddenly sobered up. After downing pretty much a bottle of whiskey, he seems quite alert, and he tells them, Linda, your friend escaped again because your other friend passed out. And Varla barks, passed out! Angry, and they said, we gotta go get her.
They're out. Everybody's chasing Linda now. The focus on the money has slightly shifted at this point. They finally track down Linda, and there's this strange showdown between the vegetable, the old man,
He's six.
Linda.
He says, go get her. Go get her, boy. Go get her. And he goes, and it's terrifying. There's Linda still in her bikini.
Yeah.
This hulking, built Frankenstein's monster is coming after her, and she's terrified, and the vegetable just breaks down. He says, I can't do it.
Yes.
I can't.
And he wasn't hired for his acting ability.
No, he's a good-looking dude, and he's built. He's got the prerequisites for the role. So Varla and Kirk come, and Varla, of course, makes fun of everybody for caring about things. You can't care about things in Varla's world. It's all about the long green. So, and for some reason they stopped their car. Varla was chasing the old man in his truck and
Porsche.
in the Porsche, and they parked for some reason a mile away. They stopped the car. I don't know why.
And the old man at some point pulls himself out of the cab of the truck, dragging himself across the desert to watch.
Yes,
Hopefully the vegetable is going to kill Linda. He wants to watch
rape
this.
and kill this young woman. So it's so
Messed up.
It's just ugly people doing ugly things. Kirk shows up, tells his brother, don't do this. He's like, I've got to do what I got to do. I'm going to take Linda back home. My brother needs to be institutionalized. Meanwhile, the old man has drug himself back and got the keys for the truck. He says, Kirk, you're going to have trouble driving without keys. So Kirk comes back, says, where are the keys? He's like, I threw them away. And so he starts smacking his dad around. I'm not in favor of that sort of behavior.
Elder abuse, not a big fan of.
No, but this guy, a couple smacks in the desert.
He deserves it.
He earned that one.
Yeah.
And then he says, we're going to walk back. Well, Varla continues just berating and mocking everybody. And she tells the old man and the vegetable, you guys can come with me. I'll give you a ride. We don't all have to be, noble.
And walk across the desert back to the ranch.
There's one little moment where the old man, he's looking inside because she's making fun of Kirk. Like, what's he doing? And he goes, you and I, we're going to end up in hell. He's like, he doesn't want to be around us because we're rotten.
Yes.
We're bad people. It doesn't make you sympathize with the character.
At least he's self-aware enough that he knows his place.
Before you die, you at least looked in the mirror and said, I am a nasty, low-down person. And Varla's response is just basically to laugh.
Yeah.
She's like, we'll see you in hell. And he's like, and both of us will have earned it. And that's where all hell breaks loose because Billy's there and she says, I'm out. And Varla says, get in your car and go. And when she leaves, she tells Rosie, give it to me. And it's a switchblade. And she makes the knife throw of all knife throws because she throws that thing a long way. Into Billy's back. She basically says, we're going to kill everybody.
Everyone dies.
Four people are dying.
Which, you think about it, if she was this hardened criminal, maybe that should have been her plan at the very beginning. All these complex things about Linda and trying to seduce Kirk and have lunch with this family. She knew right off that this old man is as bad as I am. He's a lech. He's going to believe anything I tell him because he has his own story.
But also, if she's such a hardened criminal, she doesn't have a gun. She doesn't even have her own knife.
No.
So she kills Billy. The old man comes back, and he's saying at this point, he goes, I want these gals off my property.
Exactly. He's had enough fun with them.
Yeah.
There's time for them to bomb moves. The old man facing off with him in his wheelchair.
She goes, yeah, we know we're not wanted. Get in the car. Don't miss. So they get in the car. We're going to run over the old man. They drive really slowly, like 5 miles per hour, and they go after the old man who goes, oh, and he starts wheeling himself quickly away, and then he's going to go get his shotgun, but there's a lip, and he can't get himself over it. And then what does he do?
He realizes he's not going to be able to do this. So he decides he is going to face off against this car. Varla and the old man are the two bad people in this story. And there was a chicken fight very early on in the movie. They're at the dry lake bed where both Rosie and Billy, Varla drives right at them and they chicken out. They face off and he rolls right towards the car and the car it creams him and they realize the money has been hidden the entire time underneath his wheelchair. And these dollars fall out. They don't look like real dollars. But,
they're terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the worst dollars ever.
Exactly.
But I do have to just jump in real quick. After they hit him, they run over an old man in a wheelchair, as horrible as he is, and they're driving, they're kind of doing a big U-turn. The whole time you hear Varla's laughing, this just cackle, this over-the-top laugh, just laughing. We just ran over a man in a wheelchair. That is just such a source of amusement for her that she can't stop laughing. Absolutely brilliant.
Pure joy in her heart.
You go get the knife, and I'll get the scratch. And so Rosie goes to get the knife and the vegetables. You want the knife? And she says, yeah, we should take it out. It's just unseemly the way she's laying there with the knife in her back. And he says, you want the knife? And she says, yes, I want the knife. And he gets up, pulls the knife out, and stabs Rosie.
The vegetable falls back on the old tropes, no doubt, that his father had taught him in dealing with these ribbons, these young women that show up. And so Billy's gone, Rosie's gone, it just leaves Varla.
Varla is slowly going to drive up to the vegetable.
Yeah.
Against the wall. I mean, again, it's like not just plow.
No.
It's slowly, and he's so strong, he just keeps her car off him until she sort of just digs into the desert ground and then she's stuck. Sort of like snow, but you're in sand.
But I think she ends up slowly crushing his internal organs. We're back at the desert. Kirk and Linda chose to walk off. After Billy's dead, the old man's dead, the vegetable's clearly injured, he's dying. Varla clearly decides there can't be any eyewitnesses. And so she gets back into the white pickup and drives out into the desert.
I've got to go out
and take out these two people.
Kill these people.
They see the white
of
pickup.
Course, again, they talk about how you can get lost. The whole movie, they're telling us how you don't walk out in the desert. You walk 10 feet that way. You don't know where you're going to be, but you keep finding people. Oh, I love this. Kirk, they see the truck coming. Oh, that must be my brother.
Exactly.
But then suddenly...
He's like, my brother doesn't drive that way.
I love that. I just love that he goes, my brother can't drive like that.
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh no, it's her.
It's her. This comes to the final battle between Kirk and Varla. A lot more karate chops are taking place.
And she karate chops him in the middle of the back for some reason. There's karate chops to the thigh.
The neck,
The neck is a good spot.
Yeah.
I would think karate chops there, but she does have a propensity to like karate chop people in odd places. I don't know why. They're fighting Roland. Linda ends up getting in the truck.
And hitting Varla. She takes Varla out. Linda is the hero of the movie because she saves Kirk.
Kirk would have probably died.
Yes.
One-on-one, Varla's got Jim.
She took out Tommy. She was going to take out Kirk. Varla's last move was to try to do one last karate chop.
She's laying there. There's blood coming out of her mouth. She raises her arm to just karate chop Kirk. And, she can't do it. Then they get really dark about... We're going to just leave the body.
Yeah.
Linda breaks down. She goes, I killed her.
Yeah.
I killed her like an animal. And then should we just leave her like this? And he's like, she ain't going nowhere. You almost get the feeling like Kirk and Linda might go off and they might be an item. There was a sequel here where you find out Kirk isn't that normal. Because, I mean, really, some of that, like at the end, terrible person. Varla's not nice. She's not good people, as I would say. But he was just so kind of callous about, Linda's concerns. She's upset, and he's not helping her get unupset. He's going, meh. It's almost like Josie Wales. Worms got to eat too.
Yeah.
It's just really a distaste for human life that the old family of Kirk and the old man and the vegetable have.
The movie ends, and you're right. It seems like they're going off into that classic, the sunset. All the bad people have been washed away, and it's just the two of them. Like most movies, the day after, you never see them, they have to face the fact that one, Linda's boyfriend was killed, and he's still stuck in a trunk somewhere out there in a car. Two, there's a whole family and a gang of women who are all dead out there in the desert.
Who knows how many bodies?
Where'd Varla put that money? Is that in the white pickup, or is it back in her Porsche? So there's money floating around.
Who knows how many bodies are out there from the old man and the vegetable? Plus, Kirk's got some questions to answer. He said, you know about that too? When somebody mentioned your dad is a serious creep. And he goes, you know about that?
And it's funny because Varla had pointed out after she had killed Tommy, when they're in Randsburg getting gas, she's like, well, some people would consider you, talking to basically Billy and Rosie, you're accessories. Kirk is an accessory. He realizes his dad and the vegetable took part in these things, and he didn't do anything. He's just going around reading $50 books.
We're putting way more thought into this than Russ Meyer did.
No, I'm sure he's like, hey, I want a happy ending. The good people survive.
There's no winners in this movie, except Russ Meyer, because he made a movie that almost 55 years after it came out, people still talk about this movie. There's a lot to recommend this movie. It's interesting. Like we had mentioned, we didn't get into it, but the feminist critique of this movie, there's a lot you can unpack.
Absolutely.
When you get into Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. I personally think he just intended to have, let's have a fun, violent movie with attractive women, amply bosomed.
All the women, including the young Gidget Linda, they're all very attractive. It's nice to watch them walk around.
And it's nice different types.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Hey, there's something for everyone. If you're into brunettes, we got that. If you're into blondes, if you like someone with an accent, we have that. If you like that perky all-American, we have that. We have all of those. It's a smorgasbord of cheesecake for the men in the world. And the women, clearly they were aware that, lesbians exist.
Exactly.
And we're going to cater to those too. It's a Russ Meyer world, and we're all welcome to it.
And that is a great way to end this podcast. It's a Russ Meyer world. I finished my Santa Monica.
The Head in the Clouds.
Oh, it was delicious.
Can't recommend this enough. Get to the brewery and get to your local brewery.
Absolutely.
If you have a brewery near you, go there, support it, buy their stuff, frequent the places. They're wonderful. And if you don't go, they may be gone.
And then, perfect, if you're going to watch B movies like we do, it doesn't hurt to have a couple beers down in you while you're watching them.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I'm Jason.
And I'm Michael.
And this is Beer and B Movies.
Thank you.